I sort of demonstrated that. I did one video about VTubing, one video about a personal interest of mine, and one video about VRChat. I spent a lot more time streaming VRChat between participating in the VRC Boxing League, streaming some of their tournaments and smaller events, like say with the Kengan Association.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and got one hell of a guest, folks, and that is...
Hi, I'm CraneVT, everybody. Good to be here.
Hey, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and
nice
meet you.
It's nice meeting you, Crane. Really is.
Indeed. So let's just start with, what are you most known for? How'd you get started into the platform?
I would say that right now, what I'm currently most known for, I recently released a video essay titled "I Spent Half a Year of My Life in VRChat," which I also dubbed into Japanese, but I would describe that video as a mix of memoir, review, and analysis on the platform. It was really nice to be able to share my heart on what it's been like to spend. If I'm turning 30 this year and I've spent half a year playing this game alone, that's still 1/60th of my life,
Yeah.
right? If you want to make it a fraction, that's quite a bit of time,
Mm.
right? So I felt like it was important to reflect on that time that I spent playing the game and share that experience with everybody else, right? I'm hoping to make a sequel to that soon, which is to explain why it is that I've spent all that time in VRChat. But I'm sure during the course of the interview you'll get a couple of those answers.
Oh, so with that said, what made you want to start with that project to begin with, and what led to it? What inspired you to make it?
Well, I've been through a lot in my time as a person playing VRChat, and before this platform, before getting VR, as somebody who did content creation in different ways with different people, different projects. I made my very first YouTube account, sometime in 2006, and I made Roblox and RuneScape parodies, right?
Hmm.
Because I loved that sort of thing when I was that young, right? At any rate, could you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
What inspired that project to reiterate and reflect on the time you spent in VRChat?
Right. Point being, I had started as a VTuber pretty close to a year ago, and starting that new this new identity, and also spending all of that time in VRChat, before becoming CraneVT, this new persona. I wanted to capture sort of at least the beginning experiences of it, because it's hard to go over a whole life story in a couple of sound bites, and I didn't want to make the video something that was multi-hour long, though I know that sort of thing is very popular right now, and I would really love to do that sort of video. I just wanted to keep it shorter, and for those that maybe weren't quite as informed to VR, sort of illustrate what it's like just getting into it, and I told more of that story. um, but it was seeing that I had spent half a year of my life. I looked, it was 4,380 hours. I think I did the math. I divided it or whatever, right? And I said, wow, I've really spent that much time. I really ought to make a video about this. And I had done 2 video essays previously as CraneVT. And after I done those, my last one was like in February, I started focusing on streaming a lot because as a VTuber, that's sort of what everybody tells you should be doing, is, hey, you should go stream. Even though when you ask people who are bigger, they'll tell you you should really focus on building your content and brand and audience through things like videos Shorts, Twitter, and that sort of thing before you go to streaming, because you want to be able to have that audience come with you and build your CCV, right? So not that I care as much about my numbers, right? Just that with all this time doing this and understanding how those things work, right? I wanted to go back to that, to doing videos, not only because of those numbers, but I, in my streaming, I just didn't feel quite like it matched the kind of content I would want to watch. Right? You always want to make something that you feel like you could reflect back on and share with people and be like, this is really cool. And I'm not saying that streaming isn't possible of doing that, because people having, like, I love watching VODs of different streamers. It's just that I personally felt like I wasn't meeting that expectation. So pivoting back to video essay content for me was really just the right move.
Okay. So, well then let's. What also pulled you into VRChat, and what started you on VTubing? What started this entire career?
So I got into VRChat first, right? And what it was that and I explained this a little bit in my video, but I'll reiterate for your audience watching here, is that it's like 2014 or whatever when they released the Valve Index, right? Like, you know, almost a decade ago, I saw that VR was really starting to become a thing. And ever since I was a little kid, you know, we grew up with stuff like The Matrix and Code Lyoko and Johnny Mnemonic and stuff, right? I always wanted to, even Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase, right? I always wanted to go into the computer, right? I wanted to surf the information superhighway with the cyber dolphins, because that's what the media sold me that being in VR was going to be like as a kid. I wanted that reality, right? So when I saw that that reality was real, and especially with the release of VRChat on Steam in, I think it was 2017, because I made my initial account, my original account, via a Steam login, and like December 26th, I think I looked it up. So just barely in there as in terms of like I was playing in 2017, but you know, it was a blast. I only had desktop at the time. I was doing the same thing everybody else was doing, which was clicking my tongue, asking people if they knew the way in a short little Ugandan Knuckles avatar, right? um, Pretty average gameplay when you're, you know, just starting out in VR chat, right?
Mm.
Anyway, I enjoyed the desktop experience, but I really knew that I needed to get a headset if I wanted to feel like I was really living that fantasy I always wanted all my life. But the headsets were just so expensive at the time, like the Index. Like if I wanted to go with the Valve, like, you know, I had purchased the Valve controller and the Steam Link. So, you know, I bought their hardware and I knew it was good, even if that trackpad annoyed the hell out of me and I didn't like it very much. Like it still functioned decently enough, right? So, um, I I held out hope that I would save money for it, right? 2020 comes around. Excuse me, sorry for that cough. 2020 comes around. They released the Quest 2, right? And how could you beat, you know, $300 for a PC VR compatible headset? You're talking about like, you know, how much an Xbox 360 used to cost in like 2007 or whatever, right? Maybe I think it was even more expensive back then, right? So this thing I've got strapped to my face, just crazy affordable, and it got the job done. So I was like, there's no way I can't. You know, I've had every excuse like, oh, it's too expensive, or I'd have to do this or that, and you know, this thing gets released, and it's like okay, I have to do this. Got a job, first paycheck, blew it all on the headset, quit immediately after. 10 out of 10, absolutely worth it. Anyway, yeah, that was 2020, and I got started. I had one problem. That was that my PC was still on Windows 7. And without knowing at the time, like being a more invested VR chat player, knowing more people having them warn me, or just having the time spent in, I don't know if virtual desktop or the Steam Link app at that time was good enough that I could have used that for my Quest headset. I definitely don't think the Steam Link app was there on the Meta Store yet. Not back then, not 4 years ago. But yeah, I could not do PC VR with my PC because I was still on Windows 7. My OS was too old. So for the first 3 or 5 months I had the headset, I was a Questie. And you know, as limiting as it can feel like for us who are on PC, or knowing what it's like to be on PC, seeing that they can't see the custom shaders on our avatars or go to some of these really spectacular worlds, you feel like they're losing out. It really doesn't feel like it's the case when you are a Questie, because what is there are so many people. Maybe the worlds might not be as flashy, but the game is really good about getting some of the best ones and pushing it out to people, as well as some of the things people really just can do with a limitation. It's always just massively impressive. Some worlds you see and you're like, wow, wait, this is Quest compatible? Whoa. Maybe their version, it's not, they might not have things like screen space ambient inclusion or whatever crazy other setting, somebody puts in whatever panel, but they'll still have the grass and the vibe and the wind, and it really does sell the experience, I would say.
Wow. So you
Kane, what's the weirdest thing you ever saw in VR when you first came in?
When I first came in, I think the strangest thing to me wasn't like somebody freaking me out with a gross avatar, a bunch of particle effects like that, but it was the fact that weddings were so popular. I knew so many people who had VRchat weddings, and I was the best man in at least 3 of them. And then the divorces were always messy, right? Like, that was the highlight of my early VRchat gameplay, I would say.
Cool. Fair. So from your enterings as a
Mhm.
Questie to where you are now, what led you to being a VTuber, and how has your time at VRchat enable you as a creator?
Well, my path to VTubing was rather unorthodox because I would say around the same time that VR was emerging in 2015, 2016, around that time I was just graduating high school, and you get out of that, you're trying to find your way in the world, just trying to see what fits for you. I decided I wanted to give politics a try at that time. So um, I was getting involved in that scene, and it's going to sound ridiculous, but the music threw me off, and if I could have the question again, because I have these long flowy answers. I have to remember why
Oh,
I'm painting the
oh,
big picture
I
I
asked,
am.
I asked from when you entered VRchat, what led you to VTubing, and how has your time in VRchat enable you as a creator?
The reason I brought up high school and politics is because at that time there were people using that, like not VC face, but that very early version of the face tracked 3D avatar. Like the default one was the corgi. You know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I forget the name of the software. Maybe you remember, but I saw that and I thought, that's kind of a fad. I don't know if that's really going to catch on, right? Like I had no clue. I didn't see the appeal whatsoever, right? And then um, even when things like Live 2D and HoloLive and the bigger corps were sort of emerging, I wasn't really in that sphere. Now, in my time of working on different YouTube projects, I'd say one of the earliest ones I was involved in was some early abridged series. But in that time, I'd worked with plenty of different people, And you know, uh, crazy to see that you know, the kinds of places they've grown and been into. So I sort of discovered VTubing via seeing some of my peers get into the space and realizing, oh wait, this is there's really something here. I would say it was that, and the VTuber Awards hosted by Fillion, which was a production completely in VRChat. Right, like they had the dynamic camera swinging around her and all that stuff. It was amazing. It was incredible. The production value that particular year, so like 2023. I don't know how they did it for maybe this latest year, if they even have yet. I may be a little behind. Point being, um, I, I sort of realized, hey, this is something that people are really doing, and having spent the time to go from Questy to PC user, being a PC user, learning to upload and make my own avatars, playing around with world creation a little bit. You know, all of the tools were there in my hands, and I realized, you know, this is something people do. It's legitimate, and you know, maybe I could give it a try. So I gave it a try, starting from 2025, 2024, January 16th, 2024. I made my debut as a VTuber, and I wouldn't say I'd say that the one thing I regret is not doing more in that time, or not moving back to videos sooner. I regret spending as much time streaming as I did. Maybe I can come back to it and I could find more value in it again, because I do find it fun from time to time. But I really wish I had just focused more on video essays.
Okay. So from the beginning when you started, what made you want to choose streaming, and what was the content flow you were aiming for, and how did you find yourself now?
Um, Streaming, I don't know if I was thinking too deeply about which ways I was going to stream as a VTuber, right? I A friend of mine has an analogy, and maybe you'll appreciate this as a furry, in that some VTubers are like corporate mascots for like sports teams, right? And some VTubers are like furries, where they have a fursona and they go to conventions and they see it more as like an identity, right? And as much as I would like to be a corporate mascot VTuber and somebody who takes it super seriously, you know, as an indie, um, sure, I have different projects I work on and things like that, but in my personal time, I don't necessarily feel super pressured to say, hey, I need to reach this certain growth metric. I need to really like expand my audience in this way. I just I make the videos that I really want to share with people, or that I think are really fun, ultimately. And it was the same situation with when I was streaming, right? Initially, I would say. Um, so when I started streaming, it was with my now girlfriend, Okami the Hunter. We did things like she bought me Sea of Stars, which was I think a game of the year 2022. It was like a Chrono Trigger inspired JRPG. We did Dungeons and Dragons. Um, I'd stream Yu-Gi-Oh occasionally, maybe a YouTube video here or there, but I really I had not yet, because I started as a PNG tuber, right? Which is why you're not hearing a lot of I did this or that in VR chat, is because I had not gotten to that point yet. Because even when I started as a VTuber, um, I I had my design, like I had to start, you know, start with the design. I drew it out, and a lot of VTubers, you know, they start with a PNG tuber, right? It's just a lot easier to do a couple of lip flaps and a blink to throw on Fujitech than it is to rig a Vrchat avatar. Not only that, but you know, just because I had uploaded a couple of avatars or had somebody share that with me, I had not necessarily put two and two together yet about, hey, how am I going to come to this final design you're seeing right here? Like, how am I going to make this happen, right?
Mhm.
So I'm doing the PNG tuber thing, and I'm trying some of these different things, just sort of making it like a personal journal, just having fun with it. And I eventually, I had always been known about Booth, but it took me some time to really search through some of the assets there. Like I finally decided on Minasai as my base. I originally had a different hair picked out because at the time I was just so obsessed that the bangs in particular be a certain way. And before I even show you that version of the avatar, how about I go back? So we're talking about the design as a PNG and stuff. In VRChat, you know what? I have VRChat Plus. I wish I had saved a picture of it to print out on my camera to show you my
Yeah.
PNG. You know, maybe in editing, I'll throw you a picture. You can throw it in while I'm talking here. But in terms of color scheme and inspiration, you could see, you know, sort of what I was going for with this. Like, if this avatar loads, you'll understand what I'm talking about when I say this.
Mm.
MiHoYo inspired design, right? Like,
Yeah.
I really loved Blade from Honkai Star Rail and quite a few characters from Genshin. So I wanted to go for a design like that, and I really loved the white streak in like darker hair. I decided to go with the more natural tone ultimately, but for a while there, and I wish I had the avatar saved on this account. I don't. I was wearing, you know, on my initial account before I became a VTuber, um, a recolor of Kaya from Genshin Impact, like
Mm.
Shadow the Hedgehog, because like my girlfriend, she made for me that recolor. Eventually, I touched up the shaders with different emissions I wanted and matte caps and things like that. I wish I could show them off to you here because this one was rather, you know, I didn't really pay attention to matte caps and stuff. If there's one thing I regret, I'd love to make the sleeves right here like a glowing metallic, sort of like you have on your jacket, right? But this was just a texture recolor to concept what I wanted the PNG to translate to 3D before I decided on any final assets. Um, I'm looking through my recents. I need to look through my uploaded to show you my initial version of the avatar. So this is the very first version of my avatar I uploaded. No PCSS, nothing special like that. I'm gonna stand up for the. Well, let me not stand up
Oh, you
because
can.
your camera's already
Oh
there.
no, I
Oh
can.
no,
I can
you
move it
okay?
about.
Okay,
I
okay,
usually have it on fly, so don't worry about it.
okay, okay. Perfect. I just to show off the outfit on this one in particular, and you let me know when
You're
it
now
loads in
fully loaded.
for you here.
Wow, that's really cool. Good looking avatar.
Perfect. Oh, thank you. I was really obsessed because in my PNG there was a part of the bangs that showed the little dip in the hair there, and I felt like maybe the shorter hair better represented what my initial design's bangs were supposed to look like.
Mm.
Even though that avatar you see me in previously way better fits my design because I do have the longer hair and the bangs that flow over my shoulder. And even if the bangs on my face don't match 100%, getting the silhouette really mattered more than the silhouette on the face, I realized, for 3D,
Mm.
especially because, you know, as a PNG tuber, maybe you are focusing like with your palm on the face like this, but in 3D, you're often capturing the whole body, so the whole flow of it, especially that silhouette, mattered a lot more. That was a lesson I learned in doing things. But this outfit as well. This is by Dim Gray. It's called his Sudu or Bird 2022 winter fit, something like that. Point
Mm.
being, because I'm CraneVT. I really loved that it matched my name and that I have all these bird feathers and that in my initial design, I also had traditional type robes. So to have something that was not only close to traditional, showed off my chest a lot, which was another feature of my 2D design, but also had like a bunch of this mystical stuff, like the big shouldery stuff and the big flowy cape and the feathers everywhere. It was just perfect. I found over time that it became very inconvenient, though, to always have these feathers, because sometimes you'd go to sit down on a seat or a ledge in the world, and then all of these feathers would push up over your legs like this.
Yep.
Right? Like, we're not on an actual ledge, so I'm not gonna bother trying to simulate it. But you can see my hands. Like, you can imagine like all these feathers. Yeah, there's a tiny bit what might have looked like, but imagine the whole thing, right? So that's when I transitioned to having the modern design for my 3D model, which is just the base outfit Minasai came with. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I enjoyed it a lot. I still didn't get the hair quite right at the time. You let me know when it's loaded in.
It's unpacking. You're fully loaded.
Perfect. So this by this time I had learned and acquired PCSS, so you can see the dynamic shadows now applied to the avatar. One problem I had with it though for a long time is because my hairs are not part of Minasai's default base body. They weren't getting filtered by PCSS properly. So you can see that even though my face is fully lit very brightly, my hair is as dark as it could be, and it will still be this tone whenever. It turns out the fix was just to change it from transparent to opaque in its rendering settings in Unity, which it would be some inane drop down button at the very top of the menu like that. That'd be, why would you be looking for it? But of course, it's right there. If it's not evident, I hate working in Unity. I'm sure most people do.
Yes.
At any rate, I love being able to pull out all the old avatars, or having other people come to me and pull out their old avatars and explain things like this, like, oh, I learned this and that. You can see this mistake right here. And, VTubers, they're very known for embracing the scuff, right? So, as you spend time learning these things over these years, the year I was doing it, at least, you can maybe get a taste of what the progression is like, me showing just a couple different versions of the avatar. But not to skip through too many more, I'll go straight back to my most modern one. Here we go. Changed the what do you call it? The leg tape here. Have matte caps on that now. It used to be yellow. Replaced the Mio 3.0 textures with kanji, katakana. I don't know the languages between Japanese, but the Sudo Japanese symbol on the bird. And I even got on my back the bird. And that bird on my back, as well as my hair and my eyes, are all audio linked. So they pulse with different rave worlds. I love that effect for sure. My girlfriend, she prefers just pulse emissions and that stuff, so it's always going on. But I'd really rather have the functionality with world spaces. For I think I could configure it both ways or have a toggle, but effort. Enough gushing about avatars, because you're asking me about how I went from VTubing to VRchat. I am struggling as a VTuber, as a PNG tuber. I finally get the VRchat model. I get it about as good as I am now. I start doing VRchat content. And at the time, I was closely associated with the VRC Boxing League. If you're familiar with that world, Tori-san and Colori and the Japanese staff, they're incredibly amazing and talented. They work with Vrchat very closely every event. So every 6 months, they usually have a tournament at one of their conventions. They've had events at Tokyo Tower and have featured on TV, and they have corporate sponsors. VRchat or VRC Boxing was even, and this was one of their public releases, like a press release. I think it's the Japan Boxing Commission or the World Boxing Commission. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. They recognized VR chat boxing as an official esport, right?
Really?
So yeah, no, in Japan, VRC boxing is a huge deal, right? Like there's just tons of investment and interest, and it's one of the top performing worlds in VR chat, right?
Hmm.
So at that time, I was very interested in helping bring the English League up to a similar level of production value to the Japanese league, right? So for an early while there, I'd say like February to April, I was focused quite a lot on that, doing VRC boxing coverage. There was some fallout in the English League, and I do regret that that particular tournament didn't conclude. But it's always been my hope that maybe they work more closely with Vrchat or find somebody like a Metacosmo studio or any other production team in VR chat who wants to come in and work with the VRC Boxing League. They could really use some help promoting the content of the English language, because if the Japanese can succeed and make it happen with all these sponsors, when my girlfriend, not only is she part of the English staff for the VRC Boxing League, but she runs her own group called the Kengan Association of VR Chat. Are you familiar with the Kengan Ashura anime on Netflix?
I'm not, but why don't you tell me about it?
Very condensed version, because we're in a tangent of a tangent of a tangent, right? One of those kinds of videos. It's basically like Mortal Kombat, but companies get fighters to represent them in these big battles that decide how they handle their disputes. So it's like Nintendo versus Panasonic TVs, right? Like, and Nintendo hired a sumo wrestler, and Panasonic hired a karate master, right? So it's a really cool martial arts anime. But my girlfriend wanted to create a way to recreate the structure of the organization in that show called the Kengan Association, right? So the way that group works is that any other VR chat group comes into the association, and they either bring forward a fighter that represents them, like they have one in mind, or they can use a referral system where they can pick a fighter, excuse me, out of a lottery that will fight to represent them. And they participate in a tournament called the Annihilation Tournament. And whoever wins this tournament becomes president of the Kengan Association, meaning you set precedent for smaller events and sort of lead how that particular VR chat group works. But it's a huge networking opportunity for all of the VR chat groups involved. We have people like the Dimensional Hub, many of the people who fight professionally in the EN League choose to be fighters. We've had a couple of different smaller groups. It's just been so long off the top of my head. Other than the one I named, I'd have a hard time remembering more. But yeah, it's just a ton of fun. I'm talking about boxing a lot, and I'm not explaining what I have to do with it. I served as an announcer for the boxing matches, and I'm sure you can imagine, with how long I can ramble, why I was a good announcer for boxing. Fun activity. I really enjoyed doing it. So kind of heartbreaking that I don't anymore. It was a good move for me to go away from that though, because maybe part of focusing on trying to build the world up to meet the expectations of a different region's heights, was not the right intention to go into it with. And maybe it didn't matter what the intention was, because if I had been more outward as I am now, and reaching out to people and discovering the world around me, because I was very most people live insular lives, I would say, right? They don't really go out of their way to figure out the people around them. And that's one of the secrets of VRchat, is that when you're in a space, you're around anybody, you can look at their profile and follow them on social media outside of the game. And then you realize, oh, this person is this, or they do that. And, you sort of grow your net larger and larger, your understanding, right? It's in my video, I explained it as you have a need to express your humanity, right? Like because otherwise, if you don't, and you just mirror dwell, or you sit idle, it's like you go hollow, right? And most people, they're playing video games, they work a hard 8-hour shift or whatever, they're not thinking about like VR is a transformative experience and I need to learn like an RPG character from every interaction I have, right? But maybe I'm just like built different in that sense. I don't know.
Well, with most people, I've found if you hit VRchat with a bit of an open mind and then allow yourself to go with your experiences, it becomes a very different game versus coming here to forget the outside world.
I like the way you put that a lot, like the dichotomy. Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're all good. You're all good. I just wanted to soak in, often wisdom comes in short and sweet packages, hopefully. Yeah.
Line, you're putting out gummy bears now for sweet pack. Oh man, I never get the good stuff.
I don't think I should be the one to sell any form of candy. Don't buy candy from us, please, for the love of God.
No, we don't have such a.
Do influencers do that? Do they actually like sell candy in their merch shops and stuff? Because I know like print-on-demand clothing is popular and all that, but not a lot of people in like candy slinging, I bet.
Well,
not a lot of Willy Wonkas running around.
I only know of a few people who sell food, and that's Mr. Beast. And I think it was a VTuber or some other content creator. No, it wasn't a VTuber. Another YouTuber, Emiru, I think, was sold cookies. Only two people I'm aware of that sell any form of food.
Flashing lights, hear the crowd roar. Challenge yourself, push for more. Virtual world, no place to hide. Brace yourself, it's one life. Things are turning, hearts on fire. Rise up, unleash your desire. The virtual gauntlet, all in your name. Step into the light, ignite the flame. Through avatars and digital realms, we race. In this high-tech game, we find our place. Unleash your strength, join the elite. In this virtual world, victory sweet.
But gamer subs are super popular. I know at least, 5 or 6 VTubers, small indies, you know what I mean? Talking like 4 to 18,000 followers maybe, and they've got gamer subs sponsorships with their own flavors and stuff. I'm looking at that, I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Even crazier than that, not gamer subs it doesn't associate with us. But I have heard word that gamer subs also supports a bunch of VR groups and events that go on as well. Like they're immensely active in their reach outs.
I haven't seen any gamer subs posters or advertisements or anything like that in my time in VRchat.
It's not so much
and to give you a
poster-wise, but it's more like financial aid and that kind of thing on that side of things. For like if there's a real life event going on for music, they would engage themselves on that side of things. Hey, we'll be like an angel investor of sorts. We just want to be shouted out, stuff like that. If I'm wrong, please let me know.
Stamp it with a big old allegedly sticker, and I would say that just knowing I speak about Vrchat a lot only because it's one of the biggest conventions. They advertise it on the main banner every year, and I've been checking it out, and I knew about it through boxing. Right. If they can have so many different corporate sponsors and all these people recognizing and supporting their activity in VR, I'm not surprised, or I'm happy rather, that other people can be recognized and supported in the same way by companies like that. And it's beautiful that VTubers, by the same token, what I was bringing that up a moment ago, it's shocking. If you start as a streamer on Twitch and you hit affiliate, which is not at all hard by any stretch of the imagination to do, and especially as say you're a VRChat streamer, right? There's like a minimum you're going to get just as a VRChat streamer, because you have people on your friends list that care enough to go get on Twitch and watch you. Or maybe they're hanging out with their friends in Just Be Club or somewhere else, but they'll throw your stream on in the media player while they're watching you because they want to hang out and they want to support you, right? So it's super easy as a VTuber, even if you don't get like any numbers whatsoever, companies like the Stream Elements or whatever, you will still get offers. Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Raid Shadow Legends, Factor, what's the other one? The other delivered food. They're literally owned by the same people as Factor, but they have a different name. There's like two of those food delivery services. Point being, like, you just these sponsorship offers, and this is specifically for streaming, just get thrown at you. On the YouTube side of it, I haven't seen much of that yet because I haven't had my channels personally yet monetized. So I imagine that limits. Nor have I hooked up my channels to, like, my YouTube channel to Stream Elements. I don't think so. I don't get the same route for sponsorships. But it's very funny how parallel but different the experience is as a VRChat user and a VTuber in terms of like I started as a questie. Well, I started as a PNG tuber. Well, then I discovered how to do avatar creation. Well, then I learned how to rig my live 2D, or I got into 3D stuff, right? And sometimes those things intersect. Sometimes, you're in VTuber land and you go full live 2D and you start learning live 2D rigging and all that stuff. But you're still parallel to the VRChat experience, right? This is one of the, look, these 2D VTubers, they could not draw a diagram like this with their hands like I just did in the frame of your camera. Like they could not even mimic a fraction of our power, Lion.
Really?
Well, there are some crazy things I see VTubers do with live 2D, for sure. I love every time there's a controversy and somebody releases a live 2D asset. Very recently, there was one with a VTuber company that forced one of their talents to apologize for posting a picture of herself looking concerned, surrounded by fertility booster pills, because they said that this could be offensive to certain audiences, right? And if you're somebody who's actually really struggling with fertility and having a child, being reminded that, hey, your body isn't cooperating and you can't experience this base human thing you really want, that could be really hurtful to some people. But in the broader context of VTuber culture and understanding that, you know, you see how these questies are when they run around with their groups, you know. I'm glad that I'm in a group called Emissive and Bloomable, because then I don't have to be in a group that has a much more suspect connotation with a similar, is it intonation or
Intonation.
I was trying very hard to make
Implication?
that sound. Yeah, sure. Implications. I'll take implications for 200, Alex.
Yeah.
Oh.
Alex ain't there anymore, actually.
No,
Rest in
No.
Alex
peace.
hasn't been on for quite. Yeah, it hasn't been on for quite a while.
Oh. If you want a really fun pastime, and don't do this, read people's groups. You'll see some pretty. You'll know who's sus and who's not sus by the kinds of groups they have here in VRChat.
Yeah,
Very
I
much
mean,
so.
that's if I was like a big beacon, like a tutorial hint guide. That's sort of what my streams were like in VRChat. I took people what was if you're new to VRChat, this is what you'll experience in public lobbies and stuff like that. Point being, if I was a big tutorial like hint guide for anybody in VR, gosh, I just forgot what you were talking about a moment ago to explain
Oh,
why I was gonna
no.
give the hint, what hint I was gonna give.
It's all good. From where you're talking about before, what from your streaming and content creation led you to your current stuff with essays, and how did you find yourself into doing video essays and stuff of that nature now, and with the kind of content you produce?
I debuted with a stream, but I also, my very first video I released was titled "Who was the first VTuber?" because as somebody pretty new to the hobby, I wanted to learn more about the history of something I was coming into as like a beginner, and things like that. They're evergreen topics, right? You know what? I forgot I was in a Discord call. I'm so sorry. Let me hang up.
It's all good.
I just heard somebody speak out of nowhere, and I'm like, "Whoa, I'm trying to talk here." Uh, um, what was I just saying?
You
Like
were
just a
making
second
YouTube
ago.
videos based upon your want to find who the first VTuber was and how that was linked to the content you do now.
Yes. Yeah. So I started with video essays. The one I did after that, an in real life friend of mine, he's really passionate about music, and you know, I who doesn't like music? I casually like music, right? I'm not typically the kind of person that goes out of their way to go to events or concerts, but every time I do find the chance, it's enriching. I like it. Point being, he really wanted to do a video about the legacy of Daddy DJ. And I said, okay, we're gonna call that "How a Melody Inspired a Generation," because you've heard the da 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 da. What song does that make you think of?
I can think of it, but I can't think of the name. It's eluding me.
Maybe Bass Hunter. Oh, all I ever wanted was to see you smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the English version, right? He released this song in Swedish, and it was about Dota. You know, like League of Legends, Dota, MOBAs.
Yeah.
Like, you know that genre of games, right?
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's only one artist's version of that song, right? Because there's a ton of other artists who have made versions of songs with that melody, like DJ S3RL. It was like a year ago I released this video, so I'm having a hard time remembering. Point being that the original song was by a guy called Daddy DJ, and the song was called Daddy DJ. Oh, please, Daddy DJ, take me to the party. Da 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 da. I forget the lyrics, but we talked about the history of that song. There was a Crazy Frog version, so I got to talk about Crazy Frog and being able to say that Crazy Frog was possibly the second VTuber in history after talking about the first VTuber in my first video was a subtle, fun playback. I thought, like, I had fun with that. So I had always known that in terms of the video essays I make, you'll notice that it was subjects of personal interest with those first two. Who is the first VTuber and Legacy of Daddy DJ? I would say Daddy DJ was much more personal focus. Who is the first VTuber is VTuber focus. If I had to explain my content to anybody, I'm 1/3 VRchat, like Metaverse Evangelist and enthusiast. That's what it says on my my Twitter page. I'm a VR or Metaverse Evangelist enthusiast. I'm stumbling over the words. Point being, 1/3 VRchat, right? 1/3, I would say, is VTubing. So inside of VTubing, you have like streaming, gaming, that sort of thing. But 1/3 VTubing. The last third, personal interest. So in the 3 video essays I was able to release last year, I sort of demonstrated that. I did 1 video about VTubing, 1 video about a personal interest of mine, and 1 video about VRchat. I spent a lot more time streaming VRchat between participating in the VRC Boxing League, streaming some of their tournaments and smaller events, like say with the Kengan Association. In my personal streams, I've done a lot of vrchatworld hops and tours. I know it's a fairly popular genre, but it was always with the specific slant, usually that you're new to VRchat, and these are sort of the first experiences you're likely to have. Because for some reason, I always feel the need, like I feel that if I had had somebody who had known as much as I knew now, there to help guide me and be like, hey, you know, a dog, you know, pooped over there. You don't want to step in that, right? I could have avoided stepping in so much, you know, dog litter, right? So to be able to be that person for at least 1 or 2 people watching for just 1 or 2 things, right? If I could save somebody just any bit of grief in the times that they were watching my stream, right? Because I want VR to be more accessible and easy for people to get into. And, you know, between all the different things people worry about, like, oh, am I going to get motion sick? Am I going to have nausea or eye strain? Am I going to get really fatigued? Is this thing going to give me headaches? Right. Trying to, you know, convince people that those are things that they can work past or accommodate. One of the big things that I would always go over with my streams. I want to get back to that in a way that can reach more people. And maybe through the video essays, like tutorials, sort of, you know, how like Fia and a ton of other channels will do, like, you know, here's how to get into VRchat or whatever. I've considered the idea of doing that sort of content. But I really do, to go back to my earlier analogy, enjoy, as much as I want to be the corporate mascot, right? I kind of enjoy being the furry version of a VTuber, like personal journaling and just enjoying the time. Not to say that I don't get involved in different projects or aspire for more, because there's at least 2 or 3 VTubing corporations that I've attempted applying for since becoming an indie VTuber. I would love the opportunity to work with a corporate partner on a brand and have that sort of backing and recognition, right? At the same time, you know, until I'm playing sort of in that ballpark, right? Well, why overexert myself or not enjoy the process of what I'm doing, right? One of the things that I've been very thankful to work on getting into VTubing and doing this stuff is another project called Project Timeless. We just recently released our first episode, but I've been an actor in that series. It's about time loops and the people stuck in them, how to get out. I don't want to go into too much detail to spoil anything, but I play a detective in that show. Detective Inspector. He has a whole crazy line with like 12 different things. Bart Ender, the detective. Yeah, and
Very clever.
the director wanted me to do the cheesy New York accent for the whole show, so I sound a little bit like this. I'll have the character quite in mind, and I'm gonna turn the world music down. It's really nice, but it's a little hard to think with it just like hoo, 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 in my ear. Anyway,
Oh. Well, you were talking about a project you were on, Project Timeless, and how you were playing
Project
the character
Timeless.
Bart Ender.
Yes. We started working on Project Timeless. I mean, before they even signed me on as Bart, they had the script and a lot of the cast and crew already figured out. So who knows how much time they put into it on that end? But I got signed onto the project. I started playing that part for them. Gosh, I want to say maybe June or July of last year. So for like half a year, we've been recording in Vrchat as well as coming back and dubbing over because the on-site recordings in Vrchat, you'll understand there's proximity chat. So being able to come back in with a dub to get everybody's voices right for the EQ is pretty essential in a Vrchat production. So we would, in order to get that authentic Vrchat feel, I think he would record us in Vrchat, sort of like we are right now, just sitting across from each other, a camera like that, and he'd take the audio after the fact. So you still got a bit of that like frontal audio proximity effect, but the sound of the particular headsets, the way they make people sound, the equalizing factor in that, it made sense for him in that production to make sure that everybody sounded the same by having we all have Quests, so everybody use your Quest headset, we'll use that microphone. Perfect, right? Because in a recording booth, you'd have everybody using the same microphone in the same booth. You have a remote production that can be complicated. You have that audio tonal dissonance, whatever you call it. I'm not a big audio guy, but audio people, they soup in there. I'm sure you project community, you do a bunch of DJ audio events, stuff like that. So I'm sure you soup in audio land.
Of course, audio is pretty important for a lot of the times. For most content creators, I'd say video is important, but your audio is the most important. You can have the most flawless video ever, but if listening to is like listening to fork on a plate, people are gone.
Yeah, I would
or
say
the audio
that.
doesn't work. The audio doesn't work, and you have to redo the whole show because you don't have sound.
That too.
I actually
Been there.
recorded like a short in between video because I'm sort of hoping my next video is why I spent half a year of my life. But I recorded a short in between video about some of the other projects I've been working on that didn't pan out. But I have in my OBS, my J key was set to my reverb. And I think to myself, when the hell am I ever going to type a word with the letter J in it? Right? Like, when's the last time you ever had to type anything with a J? Right? So I thought I was safe. I was in fact not safe. I recorded that whole video with reverb on. So I listened back to it, and it's like I'm in the choir singing gospel for the Lord about whatever it is I'm talking about.
In an instance where we messed up our audio, by we I mean me, because I'm the one who does the technical stuff, we went an entire podcast without having my audio connected. So at that time, my headset would disconnect and reconnect, OBS would then go, "Oh, you don't have a mic," and so I'm not going to register
Oh
anything.
no.
And I did not pay attention to OBS. Lesson for new content creators: pay attention to your audio and your OBS settings, for the love of God. And we went like a 2.5 hour podcast. One mic not even connected.
Yeah,
Doesn't even register. Episode's gone.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, and he comes up and goes, "You know that video that we did?" And I go, "Which one? The one we just got done doing?" I go, "Yeah, we got to do it again." And I go, "Why? What's wrong with it? There's no sound." "What? No sound?" Yeah, I forgot to have the audio on. So we had to get back with the person. Everything else like this, and everything else. At least they were willing to come back and do it again, and everything else, and they were really well. But what was funny is after we redid it again, the first thing I popped up, "Lines, your audio on?" "Yes, I got it on." I was just rubbing it in his face as best I could, and it's something that happens in VR or whatever you're doing. But it was funny, and then once we started talking to the person all over again, trying to remember the questions and stuff like this that we asked him, it was completely and went into a different field. But it was cool. People are really flexible in here, and that's what was nice. It was really nice. I thought this guy was going to come unglued on her ass, but he didn't, so it was cool.
Definitely love about VRChat is that it's just the perfect fusion of real and virtual, because you get all the benefits of being at home and saying, like, at any point, I'm gonna take this headset up off of my face, I'm gonna go step out onto my balcony and breathe some air, or use my restroom, or drink some water. Like, if you go out to a bar and have a drink, you can't just teleport instantly back to your house to have some peace and quiet for like 5 minutes, right? But people are flexible like that. It's so easy to throw on your headset and to sit down with somebody and spend a couple hours sharing a life story. You know what I mean? The gameplay loop of VRChat is finding people, connecting with them, sharing. So going the extra step to make sure that it gets shared, stuff like that. I'm always worried and hopeful, audio technical issues like that, like the VTuber scuff. VTubers, man, so scuffed all the time, but they work through it and they embrace it. It's like part of that culture for sure.
And in that situation and stuff like this, what broadcaster, when being a broadcaster and stuff like this, what was one of the hardest things you had that you had difficulty doing, that all of a sudden it just fell on its face, and oh crap, what have you? Everybody has that, but have you ever had something like that all of a sudden you notice that it's not working?
It's always collabs. And it's not that it's difficult to work with other people. Like, they're like, sometimes you'll have somebody with a flaky schedule or something, but that's not what I'm talking about. Say you have a reliable collab, you're coming with somebody, you vibe really well, you're gonna have a good time. The technology the two of you are working with isn't, because if one VTuber is already like a scuff machine and they have like a 100% weakness to scuff debuff on their like character build, then when you bring another VTuber into the equation, they have a compounding weakness. Turns out that the game math takes this VTuber's 100% weakness, so you get a ×2 weakness, and you're at that ×2 number. But now this VTuber who's hosting the stream took your big number and is ×2ing that. So effectively, you have ×4 the scuff when they only have ×2 the VTubers, right? So say you have a collab with 4 VTubers. With 4 VTubers, you know how big that number gets? Say you just want to play Left 4 Dead. You ever tried to play Left 4 Dead with 4 of your friends? It's not easy.
No, I can't even do it with you without screwing around. Because me and Lion, we screw around every so often and stuff like this, play a game together and everything else like this. And he's one place, and usually this SOB, oh, nothing against Line, he's a damn good gamer. Compared to me, I'm an old man and everything else like this. I can take something that takes 3 to 4 hours. This SOB does it in 30 to an hour, and it took me 4 hours to do it. He goes, well, I'm up to this level, and I go, you asshole, because it took me longer to get to that level, and he's already there in less than an hour. Just everybody's got their own speed, but it's funny, and we sit there and laugh back and forth because he'll call. He goes, how long do you think it's going to take me to get to your level? Well, probably about an hour. About an hour, because it took me 4. It's just the way it goes. But it's funny. We have a blast with it. But that's just the way it goes.
Raptor, I think he's talking about technical stuff, like me not having my mic connected, or the internet deciding now's a great time to take a nap.
Oh, I thought he was talking to him in another situation. Okay, say that. There you go. Not on the same page. Nothing new with me.
It's funny he mentions like levels and getting through video games though, because I definitely have 2 modes when I play any video game about how I play things, right? First mode, and this is usually the way I go through any game initially, is that I rush the main story. I don't care what the hell else is going on in the game. I am finishing the game any percent, right? Like I am seeing that ending, so I can go back for the second playthrough where I'm playing Cyberpunk, but I don't drive because I want to see the city that much, right? I'm just gonna walk because cardio's nice. You can't miss anything on the map if you don't fly by it. Point being. Yeah, no, I know what you mean because I'm both of those gamers. Like I am sometimes the 3-hour staring at the menu, obsessing over my stats in Genshin, and sometimes I am the I actually sped run Genshin. That was one stream that I did. I think I may have been 3D by that point, but that was one stream I had a lot of fun with because being that they give you sponsors, I felt like that was a very fun way to show off the game as anybody. I don't know why it is with most of my content, I focus on like if you're just getting into this type mentality because I'm realizing with my Genshin stream, I'm speedrunning. You speedrun the opening to the game. It's like adventure level 7 or something like that, which is like 2 or 3 of the main quests into it, right? Like it's just I think the current the problem is that the game has been patched to a point where nobody will ever get to speeds similar to the world record because the glitches that the world record used to get those fast speeds don't exist anymore. So you just can't do it that fast anymore. But so it's kind of funny to say I'm going to speed run something with the knowledge ahead of time I will never ever beat the world record, right? And it's not like for a lack of trying, it's literally true because it's a live service game. It changes. Right. Like maybe I could beat the world record on my current patch, but what happens when the next patch comes out and how do you judge that compared to all the other ones type? Weird. Games are so weird. VRchat's the same way. It's all UGC, but every time the SDK updates and something breaks, we lose another chunk of history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Funny enough is that there are a lot of games out there that aren't being updated anymore. There's some of them where the creators themselves are just like, I'm not going to update the SDK anymore, and you get to watch them erode over time. It's kind of sad.
It's kind of like the digital equivalent to like an abandoned mall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in media we had a bunch of different depictions of stuff like this. Like one of my favorites in Dot Hack is like Net Slum, where you had the staticky versions of everybody floating around everywhere. You're not familiar with Dot Hack, I don't imagine, right?
Oh, I'm very familiar with Dot Hack. I've seen the anime.
Hell yeah, Net Slum. Let's go. Anyway, yeah, I mean, of course it's not visually like that unless there are some Dot Hack worlds in VRChat. They're very beautiful. Ports of the PS2 games as well. But not that I played them much. I was more of an anime guy. Point being, that is our version of that, right? Like our version of NetSlum is like when somebody lets the SDK decay and the world slowly breaks. In the same way that I said this was Snow Crash, but apparently it's actually Neuromancer. That the color of the sky was a television tuned to a dead channel,
Yeah.
and that the poor see static facsimiles of the rich in VR because their computers aren't good enough or whatever. Like, that wasn't dystopian fiction. That became our truly lived experience in reality here in VRchat when you segregate the user base between the Questies and the PC users, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's crazy in the sense that I love having the crossplay feature in the sense that it makes the game more accessible and we can share it with more people. But the divide between your average PC user and your average Quest user, and then even the divide between your average PC user and somebody who actually has opened the SDK once or twice, right? Like, it's you. It feels like they're all mountains or miles apart from each other. So to go from one end to the other, but also to have the wisdom to reflect and to try not to look down on people for not having the same knowledge as you, and trying to encourage them to engage with things like that, right? Like to become more knowledgeable, to realize in my first video discovering the first VTuber, I stumbled across this other VTuber, Virtual Girl Nem, who works with VNOS. They are a nonprofit group that tries to help people in Japan and VRchat integrate into society through VRchat. So, you know, finding these people employment in different things, or a place like social groups, which can be very difficult, and like I would imagine they're a more insular culture than we have in the States. I think is a fair assessment. But she also is a corporate sponsor of HTC as an ambassador. She is part of the regulation commission for the standardization of Vroid as a format for 3D, because I think it's the UN or some international body is now going to recognize Vroids as the international standard for metaverse avatars, right?
Wow.
So it could be in the future that we see UN hearings where because it's become set as the standard, we see UN officials being represented by Vroids, like VTubers, right?
Wow.
Like, you know, the standardization of the Vroid platform has other different implications, but point being is that this virtual girl Nem character that I discovered wrote a book called Metaverse Evolution Theory, and in it they quote an Israeli philosopher who goes to say that humanity will reach a point where we evolve to become masters of like reality itself, in a sense. Like we would overcome, we would have clinical immortality, we would have terraforming out the wazoo, we would be post scarcity or something like that, and that there was some crazy other implication to it. But the point being is that Virtual Girl Nem takes this message of what this Israeli philosopher calls homo deus, or I forget what it translates to exactly. Point being, this
If my
concept
Latin's correct,
and
human
recognize.
god, I believe.
Yeah,
Deus
yeah,
is
yeah,
God,
yeah.
Homo is
Possessing
human.
man possessing divinity. Man possessing divinity, I think is like what it is. That in these digital spaces we do truly possess something equivalent to divinity, because as I said in my video, you come into VRChat knowing really only what you know as a person before having been obsessed with all of this stuff, right? And like you have whatever social clout you do, and you are a paintbrush, and you are embodied by this paintbrush or Unity Chan or this form that you don't yet understand. You can make entirely your own, like an Elder Scrolls character discovering Chim or whatever. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna open the construction set and I'm going to change my model or whatever, right? Well, we have that. We have the Unity editor. We have access to UGC. It's not just your avatar; it's the world. And beyond what you can upload to the platform, what people do with the connections that they make, you can upload to the platform, the convention. For you with Project Community, bringing together all these DJs and music events, and as far as I understand, maybe I'm less informed on Project Community, but even with Metaverse Degens, being able to speak to all of these different people involved in VR and getting their stories and experiences. Every little effort that people make in VR chat, and not even say VR chat, but in VR SNS as a whole. Because even though VR chat exists as sort of the predominant platform, the band-aid of this industry, there are other metaverse platforms. Even this virtual girl Nemchick, she does a VR sociological study. We'll circle back to Nem in a second, but the point I bring this up is that statistically, VR chat, it's like 95% of all VR SNS usage between all regions. We're talking EN, JP, KR, Europe. Like it's just this is it. You get into VR. This is the game you bought VR for. Unless you really, really like Blade and Sorcery or Pavlov or one of those other shooters, this is why you bought VR. So regardless of that fact, other platforms are growing, and every bit of that we can share with the outside world to prove that this technology is more than just a space for gooners, mirror dwellers, and in the VTubing community, they have some pretty harsh language for certain things. And I don't like being super negative about the perception of VR chat, because I do want to promote it as a platform for better. But to accurately describe a portion of the segmented player base, a lot of people, they don't know anything about VR chat. They assume it's a place for sex pests. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to show that the game is so much more than that, right? Is just like an important thing to me, for sure.
Well, I could tell you, as much as a sex pester here and across every digital program or platform, VRChat we have found through a backlog we now have, you can also find out as well for. But there's a huge chunk of VRChat where people enjoy sharing things with each other, too, including, hey, I've learned how to do this really cool skill. I want you to do it too. And they'll just grab some random questie from a black cat. Hey, you're learning programming. Drag them off into an avatar testing world, and they're going to learn programming shaders because they're their friend. And that's a very common tale we've heard a lot. I didn't get it, like the tale that's common told, I didn't get into DJing or music production until I met a guy in a black hat or a drinking night who took me to a rave, and now I'm doing music shows in real life. That is stories like that is very common, we've heard. So it's kind of growing in the sense of development, as you would put character creation.
In the music world, that's very interesting to hear, because I know from a few of my contacts that the people, the vast majority of people who get into VR chat avatar or world development started with that. So it actually serves as sort of a skill gap for them, as well as possibly a pitfall for them, that they can become too focused in trying to just make things work for VRChat. And if you're a VRChat player, that's all you care about, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right? Because you know, if everybody's cool with it and everybody's avatar or computer can handle it and you're in the right social settings, you know, especially with everybody's ability to personally hide avatars or change their like what do you call it, like their avatar calling in the settings and whatever. um you know, have as heavy of an avatar as you want, have it, you know, with 57 different materials and 1.2 million polygons, right? Like you want it to have that many toggles, go to town, you know what I mean? You're not really necessarily hurting anybody, right? But the people who come into it with knowledge of development outside of VRChat, you know, they're the ones that I think share the most to the people who are focusing in VRChat, because they bring techniques from different kinds of development. And I tend to find that the way you say that they'll just grab people and they'll teach you a skill, even within a singular discipline, right? There are so many different ways people do the same thing effectively. Like, I learned most of my avatar development doing Unity work. So you ask me to open Blender, and I can edit a texture in Blender on an FBX, and I can do some very minor fixes with bones and armature. But you want me to do weight painting? Oh God, no! Don't make me do weight painting. Ugh, right? Like that's a step too far. You want me to make the donut? Oh no. I'll have a donut. Did you get me any? Bring me some. Um, point being, I do most of my stuff in Unity, right? But my girlfriend, she does 100% of her stuff in Blender, right? She is prolific in the MiHoYo fan base because she does synth themed recolors.
Ooh.
So you know how like Sunset Bar and like that aesthetic of like Outrun and synthwave and all of that is super popular. She does all of the Genshin and Honkai Star Rail characters recolored as synth fiends, and I happen to have one of them saved. This is her cloud retainer, Jinyun. But you'll notice that because she does all of her work in Blender, really the only work she does in Unity is the shader work, because you know she's an artist first, so she really enjoys the texture work. That's where the recoloring comes in. She loves the pulse and the wave emission, so you can see just how much they're lighting up here. But absolutely zero work on any of her fizz bones. So these are all default Unity physics. So when I flow around, it's very flowy like a cloth on the hair, but that's for every one of her fizz bones because she doesn't touch any of them. They're default. And she took the model out. So it's not like she got a booth preset that came with maybe some work done on the fizz bones. No, this is raw. Like, you know, when she was frying this rice, she didn't, you know, care for this part of the recipe, which is fine as like you know, for her. I mean, all of her avatars, they're still amazingly beautiful. You know what I mean? But you could see how one person who used one set of tools was able to have certain advantages and disadvantages, whereas somebody who used the other set of tools, like one thing I really struggled with this particular avatar was, and I'll take the jacket off to better demonstrate this, is the fizz bones for my hair.
Yeah.
I have two plane colliders. I have one plane collider, two cylinder colliders in my chest that make like a breast. And then there's a plane collider on top of it. And then on my back, there's a plane collider that goes this way for my front hairs. And there's a plane collider that goes this way for the hair on my back, so that the hair on my back doesn't go through my chest, and the hair on my chest doesn't go through my back. So at most, my hair will only ever come to like the side of my shoulder like this. It'll never go behind me or whatever, because of the way that I've set up the fizz bones and constraints and whatever the hell for my avatar. But you can tell I put a ton of fucking effort to avoid clipping or whatever. And she didn't put any, but I love her avatars. You know what I mean? You know, I have VRC Fury or whatever. I throw Go Go Loco on it. You can't tell because I have I'll stand up for just a second. What do you call because of the Quest 2
The full body
virtual
estimation?
desktop, it gives you the full body estimation. Yeah, so even though my legs aren't real, if I take that step forward or whatever, yeah, sorry to walk right into you there, but I take that step forward, the legs look halfway decent. They're real, but they're not real. So like if I was kicking, like I kicked there, you don't see a kick because it's not tracked, but I still bend over. I touch my toes. And that was really nice for VRC boxing because, you know, you slip and weave and you get real shoulder rolls, which is, you know, you fight a questie or somebody who doesn't have full body tracking, and it you know, they're like this the whole time. Their shoulders are always parallel to their head, so their whole body moves, you know, with like their legs under them too, so it looks like they're sweeping across the ground. It makes them much more difficult to hit. So kind of crazy. Anyway, yeah, I'm coughing just standing up and slipping and weaving. I'm rusty. I'm rusty.
Oh, well, I have another question for you. Of all the content and experiences you've had over the years, what have been some of your more memorable or favorites?
Definitely one of the most memorable. While I was involved in politics before becoming a VTuber, there was an event hosted by the Society of Professional Journalists called Airplay concerning the Gamergate controversy, which is kind of crazy because that was in 2015. In 2024, 2025, we saw a return of that controversy again in the political sphere. Not to go into any details or make any value judgments on that, just that I had a history and coverage for that on the past version of it. When I streamed that SPJ talk, we had a concurrent viewership on the morning panel of 34,000 viewers watching that. So I was like, what? Right? Like, it was unreal to me that that many people were going to tune in to find out. Now, other than the live viewership, that particular event never got any viewership much past that, which I'm fine with. That whole story is you know, that whole political event and you know, everything around the culture war is definitely not worth fighting, if you understand what I mean. You know, when you're younger, it's much easier to feel like you, at least for me when I was younger, to feel like maybe you have a place to say or a difference you can make. But it's like holding your hand on the pan. You know, how long are you willing to do it for? Different people need to burn their hand for different amounts of time. I don't want to be reductive about the value of people who contribute with political contributions to our lives, because I think discussing politics is important, but I'm definitely not interested in it as a content creator. Just as a memory of something that happened to me in my past, say being able to say that my highest concurrent viewership ever was because I was doing political coverage. It puts into perspective, you know, what I could do to get viewers, right? I could sell my soul to the devil and have a big number, right? Or I could be, you know, enjoying myself, you know, with my modest audience, hoping people find me for what I do, enjoying what I do, and not trying to kill myself doing it. And just be happy with what I have. And I like being on this side of the fence, I'll say.
I'm sure. Okay, so what about that experience streaming that event made it the most memorable, other than the numbers?
Um, well, I would say maybe there are definitely more memorable things that I've done. Well, when you say streaming, I definitely always want to include like video creation or just anything that I've been involved in
Of
the
course,
internet over that time.
all of that,
But
all of the above still counts. Yeah, streaming, YouTube content
absolutely.
creation, VR, since you started doing content creation was my point. Sorry.
You're all good. You're all good. I wanted to bring up that particular example just because it's one that's easier for me to speak about being like a decade out and away from, you know what I mean? Like, not only that, but it does perfectly illustrate like where I could try and go with my career versus where I am going with it.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, understandable. So, Mask, what kinds of things are you currently working on, or that you will be working on? What's coming next?
Well, I definitely want to get the sequel out for why I spent half a year of my life, or for I spent half a year of my life in VRChat. That was my last video. The sequel will be called Why I Spent Half a Year of My Life in VRChat. I really need to come up with titles that are shorter because every time I tell people the title of my YouTube videos, it sounds like a Panic at the Disco song title,
Mm.
you know?
Early
Like
2000s,
lying is
early
the most
2010s, really long acronym-esque titles.
lying is the most fun a girl can have with her clothes on. Yeah, that was a song title that they had.
Mm.
But yeah, my YouTube videos feel like they have titles like that. I should probably find snappier titles. Point being, I definitely want to get the sequel to that video out, and I want to be more productive. Like, I definitely don't want to strain myself, but I feel guilty being idle, right? Like, my idle hands are most certainly the devil's workshop. So I better put them to godly use, sharing with people on the internet some good content, right? So I would love to. I wanted to cover VCAT for sure. I definitely did. I not if I was an ambassador or not, I don't care. But not even that I would necessarily apply for it. Like, I don't think I would. But I'd love to, and not just VCAT. I want to cover. There was that other like big marketplace convention that happened just before it in the like October or November.
Are you
I'm trying
referring
to
to
remember what it was called.
Metafest? Maybe using this AI would be fun.
Hello, user. You appear to be searching for the Metaverse Degen.
Oh, great. I think it's broken. You know the link. Just look at metaversedegen.card.co. There should be something over there for you to enjoy.
Lion and Raptor. Consume content. Join the cult.
Did it just say cult? Okay. Yeah, nope, we're cutting this before this gets weird. Just go to the link. You know it's right down there somewhere. All right. Bye. And a huge thanks to those who have subscribed to our Patreon, such as Niche, Future Oracle, Aliquum, Forbidden Zero, and Frozen. Thank you all very much for being there.
Metafest, yeah. They had that. They advertised on the top banner as well. There's so many good virtual conventions. I used to do convention coverage after I got done doing politics. I went into like I was still in journalism, right? I just went from political coverage to anime event based coverage, right? But I was covering a lot of anime conventions and panels, events, interviews. One of my favorites from that time, David Hayter gave a panel, and when everybody asked him about Metal Gear Solid, I got to ask him about his Hollywood career, and he came and he shook my hand after the panel. That was all on a website called Digifyra that has been way extinct since. But I used to be a founding member of that press outlet, like that website. We're on a path. I'm trying to explain a story, and I got lost in journalism.
You stuck. You're explaining what you're working on next, and you first started with your project of why am I here with the VR chat. Then you went to journalism and how you went from politics into coverage because you wanted to cover things like Metaverse and VCAT. I hope I got that correct.
Okay, so I used to do a lot of anime conventions. I want to do VR conventions because I want to prove to people you don't have to, you know, invest a big ticket, take a bunch of time off of work, go get a hotel, spend a ton of money on a cosplay. Okay, maybe spend a little money on like an avatar and some time in Unity, but I mean, that's way cheaper than a cosplay, right? Maybe the VR headset costs a lot more, but you buy a VR headset once, you buy very many different cosplay, right? Not to say that it should completely supplant your real life event coverage and existence, but that there's just a huge benefit to being able to take place in all of these digital events, and especially in terms of like meeting people, because when you go to a local convention, you're really only getting the people in your area. You get in VR chat, you know, there's a reason why I released my video with a Japanese translation, and it's because it's like 3% of Japan's population plays VR chat, and it's a country of some like 200 million. I'm not. I'm gonna stop. I'm probably way wrong on that number. Let me not even pretend to guess what the population of Japan is right now because I have no clue. But 3% is a big number. It's a lot of people in Japan play VR chat. Poppy Street, all that stuff, super popular. So I wanted to be able to express to them what it's like from our perspective, sort of that thing, right? I'm talking a whole bunch about all the different videos. I want to finish the why I spent half a year of my life in VR chat. I'd love to make more videos that are translated not in just Japanese, but maybe in Spanish, or that can reach more international audiences, because it's important to me that things are accessible to people, right? Like being able to provide translations for things is, if it costs me very little time or money, there's no reason why I shouldn't, especially if it's content that could be pertinent to that demographic, right? I want to show off VR events. I want to show off people bigger and cooler than me. You know what I mean? Just like a couple more interviews every once in a while, not like as a primary focus, but like showing off people like the Mighty Jim or Helping Hands, in the same way that you said there's a bunch of, I'm going to pull you over and teach you how to do shaders. Well, these are people who are pulling people over and saying, I'm going to teach you sign language, or I'm going to get you fit. Like in those situations in particular, the reason why I want to cover those people is because, like I said earlier, I really want to make the case that VR chat, if more people adopted this could be a technology for good that we can do really cool, productive things with. We could have massive conventions with huge corporate sponsors and all make a ton of fucking money. We can all get super ripped at the gym together. We can, who is the third chick I mentioned or whatever in
Helping Hands, the one that teaches sign
line?
language.
Helping Hands, bro, I'm gonna shrug at you and do some shit like this, some ninjutsu, and I'm gonna like tell you a whole story, right? Like I want to be that cool. What?
Okay.
Well, yeah. I want to show off those people and like those sorts of things that people do with VR. Like I want to find those things and I want to share those stories with people.
Okay. That sounds like a very admirable thing to do. What inspires you to do go such a direction?
It's VR chat it's beautiful and it's complicated and it can be difficult to navigate, but I want to prove to people that it's worth it.
Hmm.
Like if I spent half a year, if I spent 4,380 hours of my life doing this, right? A 1/60th of my life doing it, and I'm still doing it right now talking to you in this interview. I'm still burning time on that clock, right? You know, there's got to be a reason why I put on the headset every day, right? And I want to share that reason with people.
Okay.
Less to say that like I'm not wasting my life away, and more to prove that you know anyone can find purpose or meaning or activity or something for themselves here, right? Like maybe like in the same way that boxing didn't work out for me ultimately. There are plenty of other communities that I've been involved with in the past, such as the VRC legal roleplay community, not necessarily the LPD, like law enforcement, but courtroom roleplays. I have a history in that scene, we'll say. And maybe things didn't work out for me in that community, but I spent a good time meeting people and learning a lot of things for the time I spent in that community. For other people, I remember that the Genshin community was really big. There was one group called the Freaks of Favonius that apparently it's sort of taboo to even bring them up. Like I'll be fair and bring up that I was in Rim and Buddies law firm in my previous life before I was CraneVT. Like there you go. I brought up like the Voldemort of the VRchat legal world if I'm going to bring up the Voldemort of the Genshin world. Not that I necessarily know if that's like that taboo to bring up Freaks of Favonius, but like that just two examples of two different groups that were big in a particular subculture in VRchat that fell apart, right? Like so even if you know you're working towards something, you're in VRchat, you're working on a project, you're with a group of friends, and that thing doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that there isn't the next thing out there for you, or that you can't still find meaning, right?
Mm. Well, there's a saying I hear quite a bit of times from various people. You only learn to succeed through the failures you experience. So even if things don't work out, it still gave you some basis of knowledge to go by.
Definitely, definitely.
Oh, well there, Crane, thank you very much for allowing us to get to hear your tale and get to know you a little bit. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you so much for giving me the
Appreciate it.
opportunity to yap as much as I have. I rarely get the opportunity.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. If the audience wishes to reach out and find you, where would they go to find you?
So on YouTube, I am at CraneVT, I do believe is the URL. On Twitter, I am at reborncrane.vt. Yeah, it's just CraneVT was taken. So Reborn, like REBORN, CraneVT is the handle. But I will have let me put my jacket back on. Hold on. I'll have this logo right here at Vtuber EN will be my Twitter handle. Yep. That's Japanese for Sudo for crane, the Japanese crane symbol. And then on Twitch, I feel a little guilty plugging my Twitch because I don't know how often I'm going to be using it still. Because I honestly would rather prefer YouTube streaming, but on Twitch I am also CraneVT, so you can find me YouTube, Twitter. Twitter's the big spot because I'll share most of my stuff on Twitter if you want to find me on either of the other ones, and then Twitch.
Okay. And the last
All
couple.
CraneVT.
Oh, I forgot to ask the two last questions we ask every person, such as where did you get your name from and why to use it?
The name Crane. Cranes are indigenous to my area, right?
Huh.
And I, for a long time, have always used bird names for my characters in RPGs. So when I was thinking of a design for my new VTuber identity, right? I was kind of thinking of it like I was making an RPG character, right? Like people make Dungeons and Dragons or cyberpunk characters. I was kind of thinking of it like that. So, being somebody who really loved birds, it made sense to go for a name like that. And VTubers traditionally, sometimes will end their name in VT to denote that they are VTubers. So CraneVT, I could have a very like unique, definitive animal name. Like I am Crane on the internet. I'm Crane. VT, but the VT part is like silent because everybody knows I'm a VTuber, but I'm Crane, right? Like I get to be Crane. That's so cool. I'm the bird. I am that guy. I'm him,
Mm.
right? uh it goes into like the lore of my character as well. I'm supposed to be on my 13th reincarnation, and my first one was as the bird because I had my Anakin Skywalker art where I wanted to learn the secret to immortality, but I messed it up and killed my wife. So I had to reincarnate her as a bird because I didn't have any other way of saving her. And then in order to live with her as a bird, I had to reincarnate myself as a bird too, and then learn the secret of reincarnation as a bird. Long story, lore. VTuber lore is super ridiculous, okay? That's the point. That's what makes it funny. Anyway, um, that's why I use it. I love the bird. Yeah, that's how I came up with it. They're indigenous to my area.
Okay. And the avatar you're in, what made you choose it? Is there anything about it that means anything to you? I know you explained some of that earlier, but for those who are tabbed out.
Yeah. To very quickly surmise, I had my design worked out in 2D. So, my avatar is constructed using assets from marketplaces like Booth. So it is pre-assembled like Legos, but then maybe I painted a few of the Legos, like this hair. Maybe this was just originally brown, but I painted a little white stripe on this brown Lego, right? Um, I did some cool things to my Legos, but that's the reason why I wear this particular avatar is that it very, very closely matches my initial 2D design for something that comes almost completely off the shelf. Almost very little modification needed on my part to make an avatar that looks this good. Um, that's the reason why VTubers like Fillion use what's her name? The avatar that Fillion
Oh,
uses. You see it around all the time. That base.
I'm not quite sure, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm having a big brain fart moment, but yeah, no, it's kind of funny because for a little while there, that was one of the most popular female bases. So you'd look at one in every 8 women in VRChat, and it was sort of like a free advertisement for Fillion. You know what I mean? So especially because the booth licenses allow for small personal content creators to not have to worry about things until they're making more than like a million yen in profits. And I can guarantee you, I am not making over the poverty level in America, right? In my streaming endeavors, right? It's, a million yen is $7,000. The poverty level is like $12,000 right now in America. So it was actually a little lower than the poverty level that I would have a problem and have to actually go talk to Mio3O or any of these booth people about using their avatar as a VTuber. They mostly really only care if you're a corporate VTuber. Like I could not be a corporate VTuber and use this particular model I use now. But if I was a corporate VTuber, the corporation would pay to commission somebody to make something way cooler or closer to this, or probably have the bird outfit that I had earlier instead of the VTuber hoodie. Look, the VTuber hoodie. It's a style. Okay, sometimes we just get cozy.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Crane, again for everything. It's been an honor and a pleasure to hear your tale and your story. And at this point is near the end where we start closing up and giving you, the audience, a question. So mine to you is, what's your favorite bit of VTuber lore? I'd love to read all about it and hear where you got it from. And as always, Mr. Raptor, you know the thing.
You know it, line. No matter what you do in here, folks, and in who you're talking to, and everything else, like me, make a mistake. Make sure you're on the same page, like somebody just mentioned earlier in this video. And hopefully, you don't make a complete ass out of yourself like I did. We'll talk to you later. See you. Bye. Have a good one.
Remember to check your OBS settings in your mic, damn it.